Hi, this is Les Nemes from Haircut 100. You're listening to the New Wave Music Podcast.
Welcome back to the New Wave Music Podcast. Joining me today is the man behind such hits as Imagination.
She blamed excesses on the American dream. So seldom witnessed, never seen. Imagination can make a man of you. Imagination can make me love you too. Imagination is all I want from you.
Some people
Some people dance cheek to cheek. Some people dance like what's so simple then. A kind of playtime. We made it easy then. We had a great time.
and Animal Magic.
It's animal, it's passion, it's magic. It's animal magic. The things you do to me, the way you make me feel. It's animal.
Belouis Some, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us on the podcast today.
My pleasure, Steve. I'm very happy to be here.
So my first question for you is, how did you come up with the name Belouis Some?
Well, as you can see, my name is Neville Keithley, my real name, and it was a very un-rock and roll name. And I was also a solo artist at a time when no one was really a solo artist unless they were folk or, it was the early to mid 80s in London was pretty, well, it was new romantics, new wave, it was rock, it was all sorts of things, but it wasn't folk singers. And it was really difficult. I wanted to be, I was a live act. I had a band. So, I couldn't be Neville Keithley. I couldn't be the so-and-sos. I wanted a name that was ambiguous. And I thought about the Belouis something band. I thought about Louie Louie, the song, because the Blues Brother movie was out. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I never came up with the something. I got Belouis Some. I never got the something. And I had gigs lined up, so I had to have a name. That's it. It's not glamorous. It's not dark and deep. It was desperation, actually.
I did not know the Blues Brothers helped inspire that. That's pretty interesting.
They did, yes, they did. Well, I didn't tell anyone for many years, but now I have no secrets now.
So what initially drew you to music, and how did you get started in the industry?
I was like every kid, in the 70s. Actually, I was at a boarding school in England, and there wasn't much to do apart from music. If you didn't like, I did sport, but you were made to do that. But there was music, and actually, I was into all the stuff the older guys were into, the fantastic bands of the 70s, which were all the rock. But I then discovered David Bowie and Roxy music and the sort of glam rock. And you remember everything in the 70s was you were either a fan of that or you were either a fan of that. And I was a fan of everything, but I discovered David Bowie, and that was when I was about 12, and it changed everything for me. And I wanted to be a songwriter. And I always wanted to be maybe an actor, but I realized songwriter was just so much more satisfying. So I started writing songs very early on. Then I started the process of, I wrote a musical, and I developed a songwriting. I'll move on, and then I started thinking, right, I've got to move this forward. I've got to get a recording contract. So I started going to see record companies. But I was a solo act. I tried putting a band together several times, never worked, because I'd be working myself to pieces, but other musicians wouldn't. It's an incredible ingredient to get a band that works, and you can see that by the amount of bands that actually survive. There's always some reason why the dynamic maybe doesn't work or whatever, and it just didn't work. I had very clear idea about what I wanted, I was going to record companies and the songs were getting better. In fact, they were developing because I was getting such great advice. But I wasn't performing them and I wasn't getting a recording deal because I wasn't performing. So the story is I was actually, I had an aunt, an old alcoholic aunt who was like, told me I was useless. And I said, well, I'm not useless. I can't get to the next level. So she lent me some money and I put a band together. And it was as simple as that. And then I got a recording contract, or offers started coming in within the first 3 months, So I was off running. It took me till I was 23 and I started when I was 12. It's never easy, is it?
Your sound had a unique blend of blending synth pop with maybe a more sophisticated edge. How did you come about forming the sound of your music?
When I got my recording contract, I started recording in London, and the songs were all completely written and demoed, but I wasn't happy with them, and the record company were fantastic, Parlophone, which is Capitol in the States, and they were really great. But I knew I was on borrowed time. I couldn't sit in the recording studio forever, re-recording things, and so eventually they said, well, we're going to put a single out, and we're going to get it mixed by this. How about this guy in New York called Steve Thompson? And he's very new. He's a DJ from Long Island, and he's just remixed the Talk, It's My Life. And it was obviously amazing. I was like, oh, please, can I go and do it? Can I go and work with him? So I came to New York for the first time. I had never been to the States before. And we did it. And it was a brilliant success. And I loved it. Actually, later on, I re-recorded the song again, but that's another story. And so I said to Steve, well, look, we get on really well. And Michael, his engineer or partner, Michael Barbieri. And I said, well, any chance you might produce a couple of tracks for me? Because I'm not happy with what I've got. He said, yeah, well, I really want to go into production, but, the record companies won't trust me at this stage. And I needed the right act. And I said, well, if I can persuade Parlophone in London, would you be up for it? And he said, yeah. And he said, what's more, I met Carlos Adama. And Carlos wants to work with me and I want to work with him. And he says that Bernard Edwards and Tony Thompson for Chic, they would like to do something with him. They've never worked together. How about we put that little trio as a rhythm section together and you come over and record some tracks? So I persuaded Parlophone in London, told them a few lies about how much it was going to cost, came back to New York, and I was in the Last Chance Saloon, Steve. I'd pushed my luck. I'd been recording this album for a year and it was rubbish. I started again with Steve, but we knew in the first day we had it. I knew. It was magic. And I went back to London on Monday morning and said, here's your hit record. Now leave me alone and let me get on. And then I did most of the rest of the album again with Steve, who then went on. Steve Thompson went on, and Michael went on to be, I think, the greatest mix engineers of the 80s, I think, probably.
So your breakout hit Imagination was a massive success. What was the inspiration behind that song?
I looked at my notes about a year ago for publishing, just for the publishers. And it looks like I wrote the song when I was in about 19. I think all songs, my songs certainly are always a combination of emotions and ideas and I think to interpret a song is very difficult, because I think that unless it's a really obvious song, I think the song is what you hear. So when you hear Imagination, what do you hear, Steve? And I think unless you're doing something, perhaps newer songs are a bit the ones that are created in the studio with a Mac or with a computer, and a lot of the stuff out now is the lyrics are written as an afterthought. But, I wrote my words and music at the same time. And so to me, the song flowed, and I know what it's about to me, but, I think people have to interpret the song, I think it would be silly for me to say, oh, it's about this or it's about that, because it's not. It's about a lot of things. And I think the other thing that's, you do is you take a bit of, I wrote every day for 7 or 8 years. I'd sit up all night, every night, and as much as I could. And I took a little bit of a song here and a little bit of a song there, and it just suddenly went, and suddenly it was magic. The chorus for Imagination was one of those divine moments. I'd been sitting there with the bridge and the verse and the bridge, and then I kept on getting to the chorus and going, she blames excesses on the American dream. so seldom witnessed, never seen. What's I just needed that word, and imagination came up. You know, it was a moment of I was very lucky.
So the 80s was a golden era for music videos. Imagination had a famously risque video. Were you concerned about how the video would be received, or did it push any type of boundaries?
No, I don't care about that. I mean, listen, they don't like it, they don't have to watch it. I mean, it was a very exciting time for videos, and the budgets were big. But I knew that I wasn't going to get heavy rotation on TV or MTV because I was new. And so we came up, I thought, well, the best thing to do is every club and every bar in the Western Hemisphere has a screen now. Do you remember? I mean, no, you're probably too young, but I mean,
Yep.
everywhere had a screen. And I thought, how do I get shown all night in every bar, in every town in the country and in Europe and the Far East, actually, and everywhere, basically. So do something a little bit more edgy. And that's why. And Storm Thorgerson, who directed it, had a reputation for being amazingly. Hypnosis had done all the album sleeves for Led Zeppelin, and if you remember, everyone in the 70s, 60s and 70s, Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. So he was really, really creative. So it was beautifully done, but it wasn't done for popular consumption. It was done for an older market.
Yeah, I definitely do remember those video screens in the dance clubs back in the day. That was good marketing, good way to get your name out there.
The record company weren't happy, though. I mean, luckily, I was able to be a little bit, Steve. I a bit of subterfuge there as well. You know, they didn't really know. They saw a storyboard for one video, and we sort of made another one. And Storm was a pretty ferocious character, and I think he told them. I don't want to swear on your podcast, but I think he told them that they weren't allowed to come to the set, and they were, they were to mind their own business. And we turned up, and I remember the MD of the record company went ballistic. He was fuming. But at the same time, the rest of the label were incredibly happy. The marketing guys were cheering in the corridors. They knew they could get this away. You know, I mean, the international people, and the MD was screaming and shouting. But he was okay in the end.
So the last question I have about Imagination was, did you expect Imagination to become such an endearing track in the new wave and synth pop scene?
Yes, I knew it was a classic. Yeah. I mean, it was never a number one record anywhere. I think maybe Italy or somewhere. I mean, it doesn't matter. Dance record, it was number one in places. But I knew I was a new act making listen, I'm an English guy with white hair, who are very middle class, by the way, in English terms, making a record with New York's finest, coolest urban musicians. The English media hated me, and I didn't fit into any bracket. So I knew it was never going to be number one, but I knew it would be a record you'd be listening to in 10 years.
So if we can talk about your song, Some People, that was another kind of big hit.
That one wasn't supposed to happen. That was, I was sent, I mean, I had a great relationship with my record company, so I can't ever complain. They were fantastic. And so they said, right, we need a B-side. You've got your album done, but there's no B-side. So go and record a B-side. And I remember it was the summer in London, and I went off with Guy Fletcher, who then eventually became Dire Straits. He joined Dire Straits, I think, Guy's, he produced my second album, but he also was working with Mark Knopfler, beginning to start working with Mark Knopfler. And he'd been working with Brian Ferry from Roxy Music, and he was a genius whiz kid, but we were really good mates. And so we went into Rack Studios, a big studio in London, on a Friday evening. And I think one of us brought a couple of bottles of wine in, and we're sitting there, and it was sunny outside. We basically started drinking, and the B-side, we're doing a B-side mix is boring. So I said, listen, I've got a song. And I don't play keyboards at all. Guy is obviously a genius. So I sat with his keyboard, and I played Some People. And then we recorded Some People that night and sang it. It was done. And I remember taking it to the record company on Monday morning and saying, hey, Dave, we don't have a B-side, but we've got a hit single. How about this then? And luckily, again, I got away with it. And then Swatch got involved. They heard it. And if you remember, Steve, there was a revolution going on. I mean, before the mid 80s, if you had a watch, it was a 18th birthday present or an heirloom from granddad or whatever, and they were expensive and they broke down and they didn't tell the time. Swatch revolutionized. $20, waterproof, told the time, fun, very trendy. So, they saw me and some people, and they got, we hooked up, and that was fantastic. And of course, that was very new, doing, artists teaming up with brands, I think, mid 80s. So it was great.
So I've got to say, your album, Some People, has a unique mix of styles. One of my favorite tracks on the album was Stand Down.
To you for moral support. Kiss my hand and your heart gets caught, and your heart gets caught. 'Cause it's up to me to see you get home. While you whistle for the man who whistle for you, stand down. It's up to me to see you get home. While you whistle for the man who whistle for you, stand down. Stand down. She said extremes are temperament are all I have to watch.
What was your vision for that song?
I do that. I mean, I love doing that live. It really goes down well live. And I like the lyrics. It's, again, they sort of, the lyrics that a young man, writes. I mean, I'm not they're not the lyrics I would write now, but they're a bit, like, and, but it's great to sing. It's real simple. It works live. Yeah, there's lots of different styles, but I think because the same players were playing on everything, there's a link. Do you know what I mean? There's a couple of tracks that don't fit in on the album, I think, but that was me experimenting, I think. But I think the rest of it, I mean, no one could stop me. I was on a roll. I was having a great time working with people I loved,
How I discovered you was your song Round Round was featured in the Pretty in Pink soundtrack. Which became an iconic album of the 80s. How did that opportunity come about, and what was it like being on such a legendary film soundtrack?
In the States, John Hughes and the Brat Pack movies are part of your cultural heritage and background. In Europe, not so much. So I knew about John Hughes and I knew obviously Breakfast Club and everything, but it wasn't so. In the UK, it wasn't so. So just so you know, so. But obviously my whole career was aimed at the United States. It was obvious for me that if you didn't crack America or work in America, what was the point? I mean, it's also, I think the best audiences, but that's another story. I like being an Englishman making records in America. It made me feel good. But when I got the chance, when I was told that John Hughes was interested, but I had to write a song for a particular part of the movie, which was tricky because most of the other songs on that album are actually songs he took, and he was really good at putting soundtracks together. And he asked me to write a song, and that was really tricky because I'm not the kind of songwriter who can write to order. I spent a lot of time doing that song, and I was never really 100% happy with it. So I did the demo. He actually rang me up in the studio and said, here we are. I want you to do this and that. And John Hughes was, I found out since then, was a pretty scary, I mean, he knew what he wanted, as a director. So I did the song. I always thought the song could be better until now. I mean, not now, but until a few years ago. And now I do the song live, and it's a stormer live. It really works well live. It's really got oomph to it. I went to LA and I recorded it with Bernard Edwards producing and Tony Thompson on drums and some great players, and didn't think anything else of it until the movie came out. And 2 years later, I see the soundtrack is a hit and it's doing incredibly well. Because it was such a big gap between recording it and the movie coming out. I'm obviously incredibly proud of my involvement in that movie. I mean, the soundtrack. I think I'm the poor relation on the soundtrack. The soundtrack is amazing.
So I've got to ask, were you a fan of John Hughes's movies back at that time?
And of course I've seen them all now and love them. I mean, now over the course of the years, but yes, absolutely. I remember seeing them at the time, but I don't think it had the same effect on the European kids and teenagers as it had on the American kids, if you know what I mean. Very American feel to it. I love it. And it was like that in LA. I remember being, in the States a lot in the mid 80s. It was like that. He got it right.
So you're set to tour the U.S. for the first time since 1986 with the Hit and Run tour with Jay Aston's Gene Loves Jezebel and the Stray Cats, Slim Jim, Phantom. What made that now the right time to return to the stage?
I was due to start last year, Steve, with The Alarm. And
The Alarm and the Blow Monkeys.
Yeah, and then Mike Peters was diagnosed. His cancer came back, and he's always he had cancer about 20 years ago, and it came back with a vengeance, and it was diagnosed about 3 days before the first date in New Orleans. So the tour had to be postponed, cancelled. He, meanwhile, has now gone through this amazing. It was a Richter's transformation of leukemia or lymphomia or whatever, Hodgkin's lymphomia. That's it. And he's actually on the road to recovery, which is incredibly rare for what he's been through. And I wish him the best. But meanwhile, the tour was cancelled. So I was delayed for another year, and I'm back with Jay Aston's Gene Loves Jezebel and Slim Jim, who I knew in the 80s. He lived in London, so I knew him. Went out a couple of times with him, so I'm excited about that. And then, of course, I'm with Lost Days Live in the summer, which is an amazing lineup. Again, I think this year the lineup for Lost Days Live is amazing.
Yeah, this summer you are part of that Lost 80s lineup tour, and that was actually one of my other questions. It has a great lineup, including the Vapors, Big Country, China Crisis, Icicle Work, and they just added Peter Godwin. Is there anybody that you're interested in seeing on that tour?
Yeah, I've always wanted to do this for a few years, this tour. Because I didn't do anything for 30 years, as you might have seen. I've seen it, and it's normally only just in California. So I'm thrilled it's going all the way around the States. And also, I'm really proud to be on that lineup. It makes me feel good. I think that whatever you're paying for your ticket, it's worth every dollar. If you haven't seen any bands for 40 years, come to this one. It's amazing. China Crisis, Flock of Seagulls. You went through the others just now. Just incredible. 9 of the most, the sound, it's going to be 40 hits.
So what can audience expect to see whether they see you on the Hit and the Run tour or the Lost 80s Live? What can they expect from your live show?
Well, I've just done my first 2 live shows in 40 years in London, and I loved it. And it's just, the first one, I was a bit nervous. I was like, oh, what am I going to do? It's like riding a bike. You sort of know when you get on stage, hope for the best. I went on. I didn't have any beers beforehand in the old days, too old for that. And the second one was sold out and was a stormer. So I'm coming to America with confidence. I think it's going to be great.
Now, a question we ask all the artists we interview is, do you have a favorite live performance or tour memory that stands out?
The one that has to stand out for me is I opened for Queen at Nebworth in 1986, which was the biggest concert in the UK ever. It was 140,000 people. 140,000, and then they stopped counting. It was before, when things were a little bit more fluid in those days. So that's the standout memory. That was just amazing, with Big Country and Status Quo and I think In Excess. I can't remember. But anyway, I loved playing in the States. I think my favorite, I remember every gig for different reasons. The Greek Theatre, but the Beacon in New York, I remember. I did that on my own for Swatch, and I loved that. Playing in America is great because the audiences just throw everything at it. They go, if you make an effort, they love you.
So I've got to ask, with the resurgence of your live shows and renewed interest in 80s new wave, do you have any plans to release any new music?
I have demos recorded and ready to go, Steve, but I now have the problem of working out who, where, how, which direction. And I'm pondering, but I'm getting nearer to it. But I love the songs. I think the songs are great. So I'm very proud of them. There's 2 or 3, that I think really good. So I need a bit of time to work out where I start recording and who with and what direction I go, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It'll happen. One day it'll just be a bolt of something.
Well, Belious Some, I wish you the best of luck with the upcoming tours and
Thank
reconnecting with
you.
those U.S. audiences. Looking forward to seeing you live on the road. Also looking forward to eventually maybe hearing some new music with you. And also, before you go, can you let our listeners know where can they keep up with you? Like, are you on social media? What's the best way to follow you?
I'm on Instagram every day at Belouis Some. You've got to get the spelling right, but you can work that one out. It's all one word, Belouis Some. I'm obviously BelouisSome.com with all my links. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook. Facebook is great. If you're on Facebook, come to my Facebook, follow my Facebook. I post every day on everything. So, I'm one of those people. I've just discovered social media. I'm going crazy with it. I love it.
Well, again, thanks so much for sitting down with us for a few moments. It's great to catch up with you. And again, looking forward to seeing you on the road.
Thank you, Steve. Great talking with you.
If this is your first time listening, we thank you and ask that you please subscribe. That's a great way to support us. And if you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to leave us a 5-star review. You can also find us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search for New Wave Music Podcast. We'll catch you on the next episode.